Hi everyone, this is Tagore and welcome to my podcast, A Pint of Imbecile Wisdom. And today I'm really excited about who I'm going to be talking to. This is the third episode that we're doing in the series, and it's taken 3 episodes to get a woman on my show as a guest. The story of my life, I've been asking too many women out too many times, and I've always got rejected, and this is no difference. But I'm so honored to actually have my guest with me on the show because uh, as I was talking to my 10-year-old little while ago, I was telling her about all the things that my guest does, and my daughter was so impressed. She said, "Can I just stay on just to say hello to her?" And that's exactly what she did a few minutes ago. So, my guest has taken very mundane Tuesdays and turned them into terrific Tuesdays. And she's done this by basically taking topics, taboo topics, in fact, that not many people want to talk about, definitely not the mainstream media or the so-called mainstream influencers, or so to speak. And she takes them and she actually addresses these issues. But what's even more cooler is her target audience are a bunch of young kids and youngsters and the youth, and even younger than that, who come onto her shows and they listen to her, dedicate her time and her efforts, bringing the right people on to talk about various topics, right from, is it safe for women to be on the streets, and why isn't that the case for women? She talks about a whole lot of other topics. She's done about 17 episodes so far. Besides that, she has been a naval veteran. She owns her own business. She has spoken at TEDx not once, not twice, but 3 times. She is a mentor. She's an influencer. She does stuff on leadership. Extremely cool, very outspoken, amazingly brave, even in her sense of humor. And as I said, I'm just so happy to have her as my first woman guest on the show. So, Sandhya.
Hi, everyone. A very, very happy New Year to all of you, and good evening, Tagore. Yeah, it's been a long time since I spoke, so.
Yeah. All right. So before we get into knowing, what a little more about you and this wonderful stuff that you do,
Yeah.
Sunday, there's a rule. There's a rule on this podcast. You can't appear on my podcast if you're not having a drink, because I believe that as our glasses get refilled, our intellect also increases a bit. So, and that's the whole tone of this podcast. Even though we talk about very serious and real issues, but we do it like we're having a chat at the pub. So, what's your drink for the afternoon or the evening?
It's evening here, so yeah. I am having a slightly modified version of a cocktail called Black Queen. So I call this version a Black Princess.
Okay, and why is that a black? And first of all, what makes this drink?
It's a rum-based drink. So the current one has Old Monk.
Oh yeah.
Black coffee, a spoon of chocolate spread, and hot water.
Oh, I like that. But Old Monk, that's really classic. If you're an Indian, and if you're doing Old Monk, then that's like legendary stuff, by the way. So well done on that. I've got a very boring drink this evening. I'm drinking a Bacardi Breezer. It's light and
ouch.
I know exactly. Sorry, you can feel sorry for me, but I promise to keep the podcast more exciting. So, Sandhya, let's get straight to talking about you first of all. Yeah. So there's a number of hats that you wear, and it's amazing how you pull all of these things off. And I've only gotten exposed to one of the things that you do, but incredible. So tell us a little bit about yourself before we move on to the taboo talks that you actually do so well.
Well, I have a bit of a mixed blood in terms of my birth. Yeah. So let's start from there. And so my father is a Kashmiri Punjabi. So I'm born in Srinagar, and I've grown up in different parts of India, but my childhood was in the Northeast. My mom's Nepali. And,
oh, wow.
And I grew up in the Northeast. So for most of my life, I've been a pretty secular, liberal person because we grew up in a community where we had people from everywhere. So, it's like, it's a beautiful time to grow up with. And then, of course, I moved to a convent, to a boarding school. So most people tell me I was a nerd. I suppose I was a bit of a quirky nerd, but yeah, that depends on how you want to define it more than anything else. Then I moved on. I've been traveling quite a bit. So then I started my work at the age of 13. So as a teacher,
wow.
So I was studying in 8th grade and I was teaching 6th graders for 3 months in another school during my winter vacations. So that's how I started working. And I don't think that has changed much, because no matter what I do, learning and teaching is kind of constant. They go hand in hand and it just never ends. So
I agree.
I've been a military officer in the Navy, ton of things, but that's done, right? Done and dusted. So new things, new day, new year.
So so you were in the Navy as well for a while, eh? That's incredible. And how long ago was that, if I may ask?
That was ages ago. I got commissioned in 1994, and I left in 2001.
Okay. And then ever since then, you've been based in Delhi?
No. I flew out. I finished my commission in 2001 August, and 9/11 I flew out to Nigeria for work. So I also became one of those very rare Indians, among the first women to also go to Nigeria on a work visa as an Indian woman. So I was there for about 10 years, came back in 2011, dabbled in a lot of things. When I came back, I had family, commitments and other things to look at. So I couldn't really take up a regular job. Also, they wanted me to do an MBA, and I said, no way, not happening. Mostly, so I did a lot of photo shoots. I was in Bombay, did a lot of workshops, any odd thing to keep me going. So that's when I realized, whatever you do, if you're having fun, it's not work. But that's an important part of growing up. So.
Wow. And then from there to talking at TEDx 3 times.
Yes.
To doing mentoring and leadership, mentoring and talking to youth and, starting your own business. And what I was telling my daughter, I said that Sandhya wanted to publish a book. She wasn't happy with the publishers that she was talking to. So she started her own business to publish people's books and her own book. So yeah, I mean, that's a bit wacky, Sandhya, but hats off to you.
No, but if somebody is not doing something, I mean, how much patience can you gather, right? So you just go ahead and do it. So you don't waste time and it gets done. And it's a huge learning curve in the process, because then I learned everything there was to about publishing. And I'm still not a great publisher, maybe, but at least I'm learning the ropes.
Wow. And you've got your first book hopefully coming out soon?
No, my first book's already out.
Your first book's already out? Okay, beg your pardon.
Yes, okay. That came out in June 2020. It's a military political thriller. Not a thriller per se, but kind of, which is based in India in its political journey right from 1972 right up to 2019 summer. Wow. So that one's out. I published first in 2016. One of my poems got published by the University of Arizona Press. These were poetry on social justice, rebellion poetry, basically. So I had written a piece about Kashmir, and that got selected and it got published. So that's 2016. Then we moved on to 2019. I got another 11 poems published here in India at the Global Literary Fest. So we were basically featured poets. Got that done. Then 2020, I published 2 of my poems at the Rio Grande Poetry Festival special edition called Boundless 2020, out of which I am so kicked about this. I got nominated, my poem, which was dedicated to my mom who's passed, that got nominated for the Pushcart Prize 2020. So,
wow.
Yes, fingers crossed. Then a couple of other things that happened last year. So, I mean, things keep happening, and, I'm writing a couple of books now. I have one anthology that has to come out by March because I'm also a featured poet at the Rio Grande Poetry Festival in April this year. So I have to be attending that, and I want this book out by then. I'm also contributing to their anthology, the official anthology as well. And after that, I've got a book that I'm writing called Provocation, which is about it's a desire map for people who are dating now, but they actually belong to the offline era. So
Oh, wow.
It's just anecdotal stuff about life and, basically, again, taboo topics, really. Yeah. So it has to get somewhere. So I said, all right, let's just bring it on.
So which is great. and that brings me now to the core topic of our conversation this evening. And that is the Taboo Topics, which is how I got to hear about you in the first place. So you're doing so many things, Sandhya, and then, there's Taboo Topics that happens on a weekly basis. And I'm sure there's a lot of prep work that also goes into doing each episode. So tell us a little bit about Taboo Topics. What is it that you do with Taboo Topics, first of all?
Okay, Taboo Topics, I was trying to pick a day to start it. And then I realized, I do a lot of this alliteration stuff, like Marvelous Monday and, Terrific Tuesday, Wonderful Wednesday, stuff like that. So I said, okay, Tuesday sounds great. And mostly, people are, I think, a bit cranky by Tuesday because they've had a lousy Monday morning and, start to the week. So I said, okay, let's just, do something. And also it started during the, the lockdown period. So I had people who were sitting at home. Everybody was doing some sort of certification or the other, but nobody was talking about the ground realities of stuff, like shit happens, but nobody talks about it. So I'm sorry, my language is going to be like that.
That's fine.
Yeah, I can't speak otherwise. So basically that's how I started. And I said, I was talking to a friend of mine, Sharon, and I told her, I said, listen, we should do this live. So this is way before the COVID happened, lockdown happened. But then instead of going live offline, we went live online. And I think that was nice because I could reach out to a lot of millennials. Now, the work that I was consulting at a company called Indian Zero, where I was also, I had about 2,000 kids, millennials, basically, youngsters who were doing their internship under the program. And I was one of the mentors. So I realized with them that there was a huge gap in communication, in understanding, what was going on in life. And there's a huge gap. Okay, parents don't get their kids and kids don't get their parents. So that abyss that's there in between needed to be filled up. And I said, if I put it out on Facebook Live, then it's just me talking, but I want the conversations to happen. And I don't want people getting abused about it. And, I'm not Arnab Goswami by any chance. Not even in my 10 lifetimes would I want to be like that, but yeah.
Okay.
So, so that just tells you the depth of extreme feeling and passion I have for the man.
Understandable, yeah.
Yeah, and trust me, some people are not going to get the pun at all.
Yeah.
So irony, sarcasm doesn't work. They just don't get it. Such a waste. But yeah, so that's how I started. And then I realized people needed a space where they could speak and not be judged. So the ground rules were laid that, if you talk, it's fine. If you don't agree to what someone else is saying, that's also fine. But if you start being abusive to the person because you don't agree with what they're saying, you get kicked out.
Yeah.
Respect is important, space is important, and you have to listen. So yeah, things do get judgmental in between, but I try to, diffuse it by pulling somebody's leg, or you just, kind of bringing a bit of humor to the situation, because I don't want people at loggerheads here. You're there to understand topics. And I think the most important topic that we picked up last year was about, because this kind of, it's a problem for everyone else. Everybody feels it, everybody experiences, nobody talks about it. And that is about consent, love, romance, and sex. They're all interlinked, but nobody seems to be understanding that difference. So that episode was, It was quite a big number of people showed up, youngsters especially, but also people who were 70. I had my oldest audience at that point was 70 years old, and the youngest one was 21. So that's the range. And it kind of helps when you have in the audience somebody who's in their 70s and there is somebody in their 20s listening in when they speak, or they listening in when the youngsters are speaking. Because here the platform does not permit for them to abuse each other. You are bound to listen to them and understand where it's coming from. Most people don't say a lot. And we try to make sure that they start saying something. It takes about 15, 20 minutes for them to thaw down and get talking. And, as a result of that, you do realize I talk a lot, right?
I wasn't going to go there, but no, but I mean, as I said, I mean, earlier on, I mean, I was fortunate enough to have attended one of your sessions, and I look forward to attending many more. And I really like the way that
you must attend the next one. We're going to do the next one on Galis, abuse words.
Yeah, is that where you want to rip me apart because of a God of sinners?
No,
okay,
not
no.
at all.
Okay,
there's no ripping apart. I just told you that.
Yes,
no. Weren't you listening?
No. I agree. So the thing is, Sandhya, so you can't touch upon as to why you did it, because you had all these millennials working with you, and you found that there was a lot of gap in communication.
Yeah.
So you want to reach out to these millennials. So what exactly does your Taboo Talks do? I mean, you have, I know you have these people coming onto the show, but you also invite, I don't know whether the right word is subject matter experts, or
I don't invite the doctors and the legal people and stuff. No, this is practical stuff. This is daily stuff. This is stuff that needs to be understood or spoken to, and spoken by people who are real. They're the ones undergoing these experiences. And an expert can come in and give all the gyan they want because they've studied about 4-5 years on it. I'm being very sarcastic. I'm probably being demeaning. My apologies, but the truth is that the technical jargon flies over my head, and I do consider myself fairly educated in life, not in terms of school knowledge so much as practical experience in life. So I'm looking at them and I'm like, this is flying over my head. This is not going to go to people who want to make a difference but don't know how. Because when it's therapy, it's fun. It's therapy itself is taboo therapy, right? If you go to a psychologist and get help, they think you're insane. That's India, right? They'll just say, Agra kyun nahi bhejte ya Ranchi kyun nahi bhejte? So, there's always this thing, this, oh my God, that kind of a thing. And then there's, of course, let's not do this. Let's not go to a psychologist or seek help because log kya kahenge? 3 words that have destroyed the nation completely and probably destroys the rest of the world.
What will people say? Yeah.
What will people say? So 4 words in English and 3 in Hindi. Yeah. It's log kya kahenge? So everybody's bothered about what will someone say, but who is that someone? So my whole purpose and vision is to get people to understand that there is no society which is actually having your back. It takes your back. It doesn't have your back.
Yeah.
So for those who get it, right? So
well said.
That is where I find. Sorry.
No, I said very well said. Yeah.
So I just wanted an environment where I could create, replicate thought processes, or the ability to listen, the ability to be tolerant, the ability to be secular, and pass it on to youngsters. Because, we fucked up, honestly. We are the ones who fucked up this entire thing. And to set it right, people keep saying, why should the onus be on you? But why not?
Exactly.
Exactly. The country doesn't owe me. I owe the country. So it's the other way around. So same thing. The planet doesn't owe you. You owe the planet.
Correct.
So it's you don't need a better planet for kids. You need better kids for the planet. So, So that was the whole point, Yeah.
I'm going to remember that line, Sandhya, among all the many lines that I've been very fortunate to hear people say to me, but I'm going to remember that line that you said, the planet needs better kids. Kids don't need a better planet. I think that sums it up, because it's what we make out of it. And, this whole thing about, society, I think it plays a much more stronger negative influence, I think, in Asian cultures than it does, in the West, for example. So in the West, people would still be all right to say, like, I'm going for therapy and blah, blah, blah. But in the East, it still seems to be slightly sort of, reserved, and, they're embarrassed about it. But it's great that you've got this platform to talk about these things, and that due to the right audience. So that's great. For how long? Sorry, you mentioned this earlier, but how long have you been doing it for? Am I right to say you've done about 16 or 17 episodes so far?
17th, we just finished our 17th one. So the one you attended was the 17th one.
Okay, yeah, right.
And I keep thinking I'll run out of topics, but that just kind of doesn't happen. There's always something to talk about.
Well, that leads me to my next question then, which is basically, how do you come up with these topics? So is it something that you was influenced by the media, or something that you hear, with friends out at dinner, or is it something that some of these kids reach out to you? I mean, there must be some sort of a thought process behind how you choose a topic that needs addressing.
So, Tagore, the thing is that when you are looking at something as big as change, there's no restriction. I don't think, most people keep telling you, you must come out of the box, you must get out of your comfort zone and stuff. So for me, when I look at it and I'm like, get out of the box, think out of the box. That doesn't happen with me because I don't see a box, right? So I feel that as a human being, first of all, it's a privilege, okay, to experience being a human being. And, while my spiritual, religious beliefs, my political, choices, they're very private things. But overall, all in all, in terms of being on the same planet as being the same species, if something is not working out, which I'm sorry, I mean, the men have really fucked up over the decades and centuries. I think it's time for women to probably take over. Very feminist thing to say, but I'm not really a feminist. Apparently, the feminists don't think I'm a feminist. So, not that it matters. Again, I mean, yeah. I really don't care. I think I'm just preferably a human being where I see things the way they are. So you see, Tagore, the thing is, when we were growing up, for example, I don't know if it happened with you, but when we were growing up, you would make a statement, and 5 days later, if you made a counter statement which wasn't agreeing with what you said, people would doubt your credibility.
Yeah,
right?
Absolutely.
And they would say, hey, you meant something yesterday and today, so you're not a man of your word.
Yeah.
That's such a huge thing. But that has been like a culture for us when we're growing up, and even when we're living our life, even as adults. For me, I think I changed for myself that perspective, first of all, where I have acknowledged that I'm on the learning curve. It doesn't finish. Learning doesn't end, right? It's an ongoing school. But your truth changes from moment to moment. So today, if you're sitting and having a conversation with me, and in this conversation, you add some bit of information which I didn't know before, what has happened? And if that information is denying or proving untrue what I said yesterday, today I will change my statement, correct? And I will change it because I am wiser today. I know a little more than yesterday or even 10 seconds ago. So when change and learning happens at that kind of a pace, who are we to, judge what's going on or judge people? But there is a sense of right and wrong. When somebody is, unjust or intolerant towards other human beings, or even animals or anyone, it's something that bothers me. And I think that change was required. So getting in terms of topics, to get back, I digress a lot, please pull me back. I have tons to talk about usually. So in terms of topics, so what I said is the experiences that I've had as a person, as an individual, as a woman, that was one. Second is the sum total of all my education, what I read in the newspapers, the social media, my talking to people who are literally on suicide watch, where, they just want to wrap up their lives, and then they're just calling me at the middle of the night. So thankfully, all of them are still alive. The thing is that's when I realized that there's so much of a gap. There's so much of a gap between, reality and logic and rationality and whatever the so-called society is putting it out there for you. It's a matter of convenience for the society to control. So everybody wants control. Why? Why is there a requirement? If you understood your freedom, you would handle it responsibly.
Yeah,
absolutely. And that doesn't mean taking away somebody else's freedom.
Correct.
Because even if I kept this in mind when I brought up my daughter. My daughter's 20, she's in Japan now. And I was very conscious of the fact that this child is born from me, but she herself has a soul and individuality which she needs to nurture, and it needs to grow the way it needs to grow. So I didn't really get into aspect of you should be doing this and you should be doing that. Yes, we teach our values, a value system, but I've taught her to have her own value system. So it's not about please imbibe my values. She's thankfully not like me. But the whole point is that when you allow your child to be, when you allow, and it's not even, I can't even use the word allow. I find it very offending, very offensive, because then it means you want to ownership of what is come out of you. Yeah. But that person is an individual, a soul, and they have the freedom to choose. They have the right to choose what religion, or whether you don't want religion, what their sexual preferences are going to be, what their sexual priorities are, how they want to express themselves. It is there. What makes it unsafe is the mentality. The whole Indian culture, so-called Bharatiya culture, is basically rape culture these days. So all of these topics keep coming up on the social media. Kids talk to me, people I've worked with, people on the streets. I talk to anybody. So, I like talking, but I also like listening to their stories. So I can talk to the vegetable vendor, and I will talk to the manager in wherever I'm standing. I'm probably sharing a smoke and I'm talking to someone. This keeps happening. So I have conversations. Yeah. I'm addicted. So you see, when you are addicted to conversations, you never run out of topics.
Yeah. And there's something
that's so much.
There was something that somebody told me recently. I'll share it with you. I was told everybody has a story to tell. You just have to care to stop and listen.
No. Let me add a little bit to that. This perspective, right?
Yes, exactly.
So when somebody says everybody has a story to tell, yes, point on, absolutely on point. But to stop and listen is not the thing. More than that is to try and just be aware and at least look at people.
Yeah.
Look at them, look at who they are, look at them in the eye, and then imagine what stories they have. But so there's a gap there. You need to connect, right?
No, not only is there a gap in listening, Sandhya, but there's also a gap today where I see that a lot of people, they don't care about what's happening in their life in reality. They're leading a life on social media, So, so they kind of want to be photographed on the Insta effect, as they call it, and I think it's got its place in some way, but I think people are getting so carried away and brainwashed that they're focusing on living their lives on this Insta effect rather than what's
you just gave me another topic.
There you go. Yeah.
That is how I get my topics.
No, nice conversations.
Nice one. It keeps coming up, yeah.
And I've heard some of my very close friends now telling me, they're saying guess what, Tagore? Now we've made a rule that when we're at the dinner table having dinner as a family, we're not allowed to be on our phones. And I'm thinking, when were you allowed to be on your phones in the first place over dinner? That's not the place for a mobile phone. So it's not a big thing that you've now sort of stopped everyone from being on their mobile phones while we're having dinner. That's just rubbish, but that's what's happening in the world today. So Sandhya, this then coming back to Taboo Talks, I know you talked about the one where you talked about consent and stuff.
Yeah.
What was one of your other topics that you that
we started off with pride all the way. I said, if you're jumping into taboo topics, let's talk homosexuality, because everybody runs away the minute you say anything, It's like if you call somebody, it's simple. You know, you see two men talking and just holding hands also, you say, "Arey, tu homo hai."
Yeah.
It's like, hello, you know, mind your own business. So I said, let's dive into that. Also, I had help from Harish Iyer because he's my brother. And I said, Harish, you need to come in for my show. And this is what I'm beginning and it's trying to do.
Okay.
And he said, of course, I'm coming. And, you know, the show is supposed to actually, the conversation is supposed to last 1.5 hours max. We went on for 2.5 hours that night. It just wouldn't end. And everybody, because I wanted his story to be out, you know, because it talked about abuse as well. It talked about, you know, how people blame homosexuality on, if you've been abused, for example, by a, you know, as a boy, if you've been abused by a man, and then later you realize that you're actually, you know, gay. It's like a conclusion drawn from people that, hey, you know, he got raped when he was young by a man. That is why his sexual preference is men.
That's
and
rubbish.
That's not right.
Exactly.
That's rubbish, right?
Yeah.
So it's very difficult to get people to understand. People in my own family don't get it, okay? So why should I go really far? So I have this constant, you know, conflict of interest in terms of my outspoken mouth and trying to retain some sort of family relationship. So, but I've realized after I've become outspoken, I don't get asked too many questions. Because when they ask me a question, if they're asking me, how are you? I will tell them exactly how I am. So it's not a question which is very generic and say, hi, how are you? And, you know, how are you? Yeah. No, for me, that doesn't exist. So if you're talking about even a little bit about somebody teasing and somebody's name pops up, I will spill the beans. So that is where it becomes tricky for them.
I think also, Sandhya, you know, what this basically shows, and, you know, it's not arrogance, but it's confidence. And I think, you know, I think it's so important for us to emphasize to our youth, you know, that it's so important to be because when you're confident with who you are, whether you're a Hindu, a Muslim, or a Christian, you're an Indian, you're a Pakistani, you're a British, you're American. Once you're confident with your own identity, nothing else shakes you. So nothing else in the outside world that comes up tomorrow will ever shake who you are, because you know what? You know who you are. Your foundation is strong. You've taken time to discover yourself, and you're confident about it. So if you go out for a party and someone's having, you know, smoking a joint, and, you know, they all say, oh, peer pressure. There's no such thing as peer pressure. If you are confident about yourself and saying, I don't want to do a joint, you stand there and say, I don't want to do a joint, you know? So it's that confidence that we need to emphasize on our
it's clarity in what you want. It's clarity in what you want. I mean,
it is.
You know, they look at smoking a joint like, oh my God, but then it's not an oh my God thing. That person is really not doing anything harmful to you. Why don't you do that oh my God when somebody gets raped?
Exactly. You know?
Yeah, when somebody is molested in a truck or a bus, or, you know, what happens to your oh my God then, you know? So it's total rubbish when you're talking about a joint and, you know, buri aadat and all that. Yeah. I mean, I know some of, you know, people I know in my family who are very, very horrified, and they keep gossiping about the fact that I smoke. But hello, I've been a passive smoker all my life. You didn't tell your brother not to smoke. But I'm not blaming it on him. I enjoy my smokes. That's why I smoke, right? So same thing is with my drink. If I enjoy a drink, I'll have it.
Yeah.
But my own rule in my head is that do not drink alone. But if winters are cold and I feel nice and warm with a good drink, I'll bloody well have my drink. And it, you know, a lot of women also who are quite modern and, you know, forward thinking in terms of fighting for women's rights and things like that. They keep telling me, you know, you don't have to do things the guys do to become an accomplished woman. And I'm like, I can be a human being. And I can still do whatever the hell I want because I'm a human being and I have choices.
Right. Absolutely.
So if I want a drink, I will bloody well have a drink. But I know when I don't drink. I don't drink when I go to pubs and, you know, I will not pick a rum. Rum is my regular drink. But when I'm out on a pub, I will never take a rum. I will probably pick a tequila shot. Why? Because I don't want to leave my drink behind and go and dance and come back and find somebody, you know, spicing up my drink. Spiking it. So I'm cautious about that, right? That's my safety. Those are my rules.
again, that's responsibility, that's being confident, that's being aware
Yes, so freedom
of
comes
your
with
surroundings.
responsibility.
Oh, absolutely.
So,
Freedom comes with responsibility. To all the listeners out there,
yeah.
dig this into your soul, into your DNA. Freedom comes with responsibility. And that's the key thing. And you're responsible for yourself, you're responsible for your family, your loved ones, your neighborhood, your society, your country, and the planet itself. And if you're responsible...
You said it all the other way around. I think it's normally the planet comes first, humanity comes
No.
next.
Yeah, fair enough. I mean,
yeah, no, it's a very idealistic thing. It's a very idealistic thing to say, definitely. But yeah.
So, Sandhya, coming back to the next thing now, if one of my audiences wants to contact you, either want to get invited to your shows or wants to propose a topic, how can they do that?
Okay. We are on Instagram and Facebook, and the handle is people call it @, so I'm saying @, so it is supposed to be at Esperance, ESPERANCEMEDIA. Echo Sierra Papa, Echo Romeo Alpha November, Charlie Echo, Mike Echo Delta India Alpha. Okay.
So they basically reach out to you either through Facebook or through Insta.
Either Facebook or on on social media. We are at Facebook. We're also on LinkedIn, by the way, with Esperance Media. So Esperance, the word means hope also, just to translate it. It's a French word that means hope. And that's the thing. We do this Terrific Tuesdays. However, if you are not able to connect, you can always catch me on Instagram at Sandhya Suri, SANDHYASURI _official, OFFICIL. Just you do a search, you'll find me somehow on social media. Send me a messenger message, minus the good mornings and how are you and how old are you and are you married and all that kind of shitty questions.
I think we should create a Wikipedia page for you, just telling them how old you are, whether you're married, and that kind of stuff. So that takes.
So just check my Wikipedia page. Oh, that would be wonderful.
Check the Wikipedia. So, talking about Esperanza, then I want to talk about one more topic before we conclude this. WEPA. So you've recently got onto something called WEPA, which is part of of an offshoot of Esperanza Medias. Tell us a little bit about WEPA.
So WEPA India is basically it. Even the website's not ready yet because it's a vision. It's a sort of an ideal where I want to be creating, a network of women. Now, WEPA first of all means WEPA, so that is Women Empowered Project Awareness. So I'm a change enabler by preference. Okay, I don't call myself a life coach or a counselor or a mentor. I'm more a change enabler where people need to take their own calls and decide for themselves. They can't look for somebody to blame for the decisions that they take in life. So a change enabler basically enables them to see the window that can have various other views, but the decision to see which one is up to them. So that's how an enabler comes, all right? And that is the whole idea, is to create this huge network and begin to expand onto lots of enablers, preferably women. Why women? People say, because you're a woman, you're doing this, why not men? The point is that women are the ones who nurture. Women are the ones who teach a child their first words, the way to walk, usually, whether it's their own child or they've adopted or otherwise. So when it's a nurturing gender, I think they need to have the awareness to bring around that change. And when women become enablers, it's not a person alone who's, become different or empowered. It's about an entire generation that can get empowered and change things. So that's the reason why WEPA has come about. Now, WEPA has various different visions, like also my firm's got its own vision as well in terms of CSR. When I make tons of money, I'll get there. But yes, but WEPA is for women, basically. But Esperance is, I have a different, vision for that. I know you didn't ask me this question, but I'm going to give a bit of information because I'm actually looking for people who can, invest in terms of either services or funds to start up this project that I have. Why I started up a publishing company, partially, of course, to publish my book, but I had a bigger vision on that, is to be able to get the stories out of children from 4 to 18 years old and put it out there. So a 4-year-old story, they don't know how to write, but they talk and they narrate stories. So somebody who can write those stories down in a language a 4-year-old understands. Because 4-year-old stories, these are stories that come out of the imagination of children. So when that happens, they're able to imagine. A 4-year-old would love to hear a story written by a 4-year-old.
Yeah.
So working on that concept. Also, the history of India is getting distorted quite a bit. So if I may say so, NCERT has lost its mettle completely. So what I'm trying to also sustain is take this to the next level, where one level is where for people who can afford to get published, get their kids' books published. We tie up with the schools and get these books into the libraries, which are about children, writing for children. And those who cannot afford, that is where the funding or the help is required, is where a village kids in the rural areas who cannot afford an education, they are from a very poor background, they get to tell their stories. They are the ones narrating or writing the stories, and we write it for them. So when we publish those books, the royalty becomes their earning. And there's the corpus built up for them to continue their education and become writers or artists. So that is the mindset. Wow. That is the thing that I'm looking to do at some point, when enough funds come by. So since you have a podcast, I'm just going to do a bit of marketing and tell people out there, anybody who's interested in the project and wishes to contribute, most welcome to come ahead and do this. We would love to do this because India is losing its history, and it's a great way to preserve India's diversity in history, because even if it's a dog and a bone story, if it's written in Tamil Nadu, will be a different narrative from the one written in Assam. So that is how stories go.
Well, and I'm glad you talked about this, because my last thing was, say to you, what is it that you want our audience to take away from this conversation and anything else? So I'm glad you addressed that. So look, Sandhya, I know you and I are going to be in touch for a very long time. Yeah. I just know it, and I hope that we're always going to be able to work together on various things. Best of luck with with everything that you're doing, and especially on the Taboo Talks. I think it's an incredible thing. When our common friend Mamta told me about it, I was so fascinated by it straight away that I just I called you the same day she sent me your number.
Yeah.
So I think it's an amazing thing. I wish you the best of luck with that. I hope that more and more people of different age groups, especially the young, connect with you and join your sessions, because I think the topics that you're talking about are topics that are not covered, in mainstream media. A lot of institutions, be it schools or so, or shrines, don't address these topics with them. So I'm glad that they've got an avenue where, they can get some sort of exposure to these topics. And I think you're doing a wonderful job. Lots of love to you and best wishes. And I can't wait for the day when we're going to sit down face to face and you're going to have your princess drink that you're having. Black princess. And I'm going to probably try and...
Don't say a breezer. That wouldn't be
I was going to say, I'm going to try and be braver and go beyond a breezer. But, and here's the thing, I'm from Goa. So I should be and I'm saying it very...
Exactly.
Exactly. I'm saying it very respectfully, and this is why people say that I'm the worst Goan in the world, because one is I don't drink, and second thing, I don't like seafood a lot. Can you believe it? So
are you serious?
No, I'm serious. So I'm really doubting the authenticity of my actual existence on the whole.
And does that matter in the long run? I don't think that matters.
No, it doesn't. But
I think it's about just being you. So.
But to prove how loyal I am as a Goan, I listen to Remo Fernandez. I hope that works.
Oh, I like that guy. I totally like his music.
Everybody loves him. So thank you
so much for having me on the show. Actually, it's a great opportunity to also have another conversation with you. And I hope to see you more often at our shows as well. I suppose if it can give me ideas, this is also going to give you ideas for your podcast. I wish you all the best for your podcast series. I think there are tons of people you can talk to, and and
Yes,
I wish you a great year. Thank you so much for having me on the show. And thank you, people, for listening.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, really, I hope that this podcast goes out to the right people, and I hope that at least a few people actually benefit from the wonderful work that you do. So lots of love,
thank you so much.
Lots of best wishes, and stay cool.
Likewise. Thank you, guys. Good night.
Okay, 1 second.